these asphodels are very noticeable, a great feature in the coastal landscape. I thought the boy surely would have a name for it, but no, sheepishly they make the same answer. Fiore, poots, it's a flower, it stinks. Both facts, of course, being self-evident, there was no contradicting it, though the smell of asphodel, and then he goes on about the whole smell. And then he goes on about how it's not, it's tall, it's not like the tall and mysterious lily, no, this sparky, assertive flower with just a touch of the onion. You see how you can go on about a flower? That is, you will admit, that is fairly unique for a man. It's not so unique for Englishmen, you know. Because you know what Englishmen and women, but particularly English, they love their gardens, and they cultivate their gardens, and it's like for some, it's like not just a passion, it's an obsession. They get so into their gardens that and the different things they're growing in their gardens. I mean, men I'm talking about, not just women. Particularly, in fact, men even more than women in some cases. So this is not an abnormal thing for England, but I think for most of us, it's probably pretty different. And look, he goes on about the narcissist in the next paragraph. The polyanthus narcissus is pure Mediterranean. And the wild daffodil he talks about, but the daffodil, and he's going on about the asphodel again, proud and sparky, etc., etc. Throwing out sparks of her stamens. I believe it was just this that the Greeks saw, and he put saw in italics, meaning they see the inwardness of things. Here you see his environmentalism. You talk about why are we reading Lawrence? Because he combines sexuality with environmentalism. You say, what's environmental? He's totally sensitive to the natural world. He doesn't think it should be crushed over with freeways. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't be crushed over with freeways. I'm not taking a position. I'm just saying he would be against crushing the natural world with freeways and asphalt and whatever. And I think that it presages the situation we find ourselves in with people who are green parties in Europe and people who are totally obsessed with these things in our own day. So he anticipates this. There's nobody else who has the sensibility that is writing in this early time in a religious way, which is why Etruscan Places is such a really interesting book. And it's not a book, it's a quick essay, sort of like James Baldwin's. Okay, so, we're on page 16 or so. He talks about the Grand Canyon, he's been everywhere. And then we can now we're seeing the mounds, the base of the stone masonry, the great girdles of carved and beveled stone. And I've been there, and they are really quite impressive. And I can't even name what's around them because I'm a dumbbell. But the green growing vegetation around them, that's the best I can do, folks. Is actually really quite pleasant. And the mounds, between us and the mounds are barbed wire fences. And the notice says, don't tip the guides. The boys run to the new little concrete house and bring the guide, and there's another guide, a youth with red eyes and bandaged. So they walked all the way. Now most people I know in this environment here, my kids wouldn't even walk over to the high school. The high school was like, I would say 3/4 of a mile away. They wouldn't walk to the high school. Someone had to drive them there. What? Walk to the high school? Walk back? You gotta be kidding. We don't walk 3/4 of a mile every day. This guy walks 10 miles just to see some mountains. Most people I think in this class, and I'm not criticizing you, I hope you realize I'm just pointing out the difference. If you got to this place and they said, okay, now you got to walk 10 miles to get out to this place, what would you do? Well, you'd get on the bus and go back to Rome. Yeah, that's what you do. Like 3/4. You say, you would do that too, Professor Eisenman? No. If I really wanted to get to the mountains, man, I'd get there. That's all I can tell you. I would get there. And he was determined to. I walked to the hills of northern Galilee. I I walked to some Arab villages which were 10 miles from the place that I was working in because I did want to get to these kinds of places alone in the hills. I would get there. So I understand what he's talking about. But, you know, I have to want to get there. And, so, anyway, so listen to how he describes it. There's a quiet, queer stillness and a curious, peaceful repose about the Etruscan places. You see, and that's why he's calling it what?